So let's continue. We were learning this Igeres Ramban, which is an absolute masterclass in, remember? Yeah? In how we respond. We are up to page 4, I think. Yes. Yeah, page 4. Ukehilois ha'ele. Okay? So the Ramban, just to very quickly recap, the Ramban has already told them off. He starts off with very much a deference is the right word, a humble approach, giving them kavod and saying that he's coming from a place of love, etc., etc., and he accepts their importance. But then he says that they have totally given no consideration at all to the greatness of the Rambam. No consideration. And how dare they speak against somebody who was such a not just because of his learning, but also because of his piety, because of his chasidus, because of his kedusha, and he stresses that a lot. That was one thing. And then he says that he was writing to a constituency that had need of a particular response to the apikoursis, which was chochmas Yavan, which was the philosophy of Yavan. He says, but he says what we would say today, the equivalent in English. He said, you wouldn't know Aristotle if you fell over him. Halochem, is he speaking to you? What do you know about Gallianos, about Aristotle? He wasn't talking to you. And he was writing for a kehila, for a constituency that had a need of this. Then that's where we're up to so far. Ukehila Israele. And then he said something else. Then he goes, it's fascinating, and really we want to break this down. If I maybe I'd write a short paper on this to analyze the different strands of what he's doing. He's attacking them on a number of different fronts. He now introduces a new element. Lanias Daiti. He introduces the following element, and he seems to say, even let's say you were to be absolutely correct. Let's say there was substance to your criticism. Let's say there isn't, because you've misunderstood, you haven't learned his Sfarim properly, you don't appreciate him. But let's say there was. Let's think about the what he's really doing is he is telling them that when you are in a leadership role, when you have leadership, and when you have authority, that's the word. When you have authority, you need to think not just about being right, but you need to think about the impact of what it is that you have. If you've wielded authority, if you're using authority, how is that going to impact people? And is the impact actually going to be one that you wanted? Or maybe it will have another impact. The law of unforeseen circumstances. And therefore, you always need to be masunim badin. You need to be, if somebody has authority, with it has to come humility. Forbearance is the word in English, to savlanut and nova, to sit down and to think carefully through what's going to happen. And here he begins to paint a picture with them. Ukehilois ha'ele. Think about the kehilois. B'shomam es divrei ha'olah hayotzes. When they hear the words of the curse, because that's what it is. And this is again a play on words. It's a posuk. B'shomam es divrei ha'olah hazais v'zbarach b'lvavay leima shalom. Yeah, it's from Nitzavim. So he's using his always flowery, lyrical, poetic lashonos of Torah, which trip off his lips because this is the Ramban. He says, when they hear the words of this curse, halo yifraku oil hamoira v'galuponim b'Torah, what's going to happen? Let's think of its impact in Spain, where the Rambam is held in very, very high regard. And then they see that Rabbi Chiel mi Paris, yes, that Beis HaMedrash of the Tosafists in the Balei Tosos in Paris, and they've written that the Rambam, they're putting in basically his writings in Cherem. How do you think they're going to respond? Are they going to be likely to be well disposed and say, oh really? We were wrong. The Rambam really is terrible. He must be a Rasha. He's an Apikoros. Do you really think that's what they're going to say? Do you know what they're going to do? They're going to do one thing only, and that is they're going to utterly reject you and who you are and your representation of Torah. That's the only thing that you're going to achieve. Halo yifruku oil hamoira v'galuponim b'Torah lahatris keneged divrei Rabbonim tzarfas yedaberu. They're now going to just put up more patchkavilin against You, the Balitosis. And they're going to support each other. And now they're going to, what's he going to do? What? Somebody once said that the Soviets got it all wrong. Why? Because if you tell a Jew, you may not learn Torah, the Jew will first say, Torah? What's that? Oh, you told me not to learn it? Of course I'm going to go and learn it. Negative, it's not even just, negative psychology. It's like, oh, really? You're going to ban me? What's the first thing you do when you ban a book? You cancel something, it sells out. It becomes a celebrity. Everybody says, really? Oh, what is it? So this is all you're doing. So actually, what's going to happen is the limud and the support for the Rambam will only grow. So you're shooting yourselves in the foot. There's so many different, there's different elements here. V'haborok k'marei habozok lechazik yodayim u'lehoisif yeshiva oid v'amitz ma'oid, and then v'ta'aseh ha'toiro k'shtei toirois v'chol Yisrael shtei chaburois. You will have split Klal Yisrael along ideological, philosophical grounds with no room for understanding the credibility, the veracity, the legitimacy of another view. That's it. It's posel, it's cherem, it's treif, it's gone. V'chol Yisrael will be shtei chaburos. Eilu yishpatu be'emek Yehoshaphat, ve'eilu yovoiru v'nochu b'nachalei habosos. V'shosa yishtu asher ein mishpat lishtois. Eilu yamdu al gzeirei seichem. In Paris, in northern France, they will support your gzeira, and everywhere else, eilu lo yochushu al malas Torah seichem. They won't listen to you. So when you now pronounce, and you, the school of Balitosis in Paris is incredibly important. The Zarua, the Smag, Sam Mikutsi, Ramosha Mikutsi, the Rubichil mi Paris, the Ramban has already said, we need you. You are an incredibly important source of Torah and Psak and Halacha and Horah. And you've just undermined your own platform, and in a large chelik of Klal Yisrael, you will just be utterly ignored and despised. And so you haven't even achieved anything. That which you wanted to, he's this genius in these few lines. You will have achieved the opposite. Maybe they'll listen to you in Paris, but there are many, he's going to say in a minute, he's going to say there's a huge congregation in southern France, in Spain and elsewhere, where they're just going to learn, they're going to make more shiurim now to learn the Rambam. And there's an irony here. There's an irony, which I can't hold myself back. I'm going ahead, but I think it has to be brought in at this point. Later we're going to see that the Rambam himself wrote that Moreh Nevuchim was not designed to be learnt in groups. It's not for the general population. It is for those people who have been swayed by philosophy. Not everybody is capable of learning philosophy. And for those people, he says, I'm going to write this sefer. He wrote it for his Talmud, Rabbi Yosef Aknin, but he writes Mefurish himself. This is not to be learnt in public. And what the Ramban is hinting to now is that now they will actually start learning it, the Moreh Nevuchim, more than before, and it's even against what the Rambam himself wanted. There's an incredible irony. I would say it's delicious, but it isn't. There's a real irony here. So he's really attacked them on a number of different fronts. It's astounding. It's incredible the way he's laying this out. And then he now attacks them on another level. He says, let's even say that you were right. I'm reading between the lines here. Let's say that you were right, and let's say it would have the desired impact. Let's say. We won't, but let's say it would. But now he's going to attack them on the manner and the tone and the method that they used. He said, let's look at this, he said. Behold, even a person's own household, his avodim, his shifrochos, tzivu rabbi seinu zal, shloi lahatil emo yisera aleihem shemo Chazal said, do not speak, even those who you have absolute authority over, your avodim, your shvochos, and you have the authority, you have the right, the obligation to speak to them. Don't do it in a way which is, do not be matil emo yisera. Don't do it in a way which is going to just create an atmosphere of fear. We are halfway down page 4. There's a little source 3 there. We say Friday night, these are things you have to say. What does the Gemara say? But hitzrichu, he's quoting as the Gemara there, alatar. Hitzrichu lememrinhu benichusa. Say it softly, says the Gemara. Say it nicely. So that when you say it, people will listen and accept it. These are to people who you have the obligation to instruct, but the manner and the tone in which you do it is key. Zehu kal v'chomer she'ein olav teshuva, he says. This is now a kal v'chomer. Yeah, this is where we're up to. This is a kal v'chomer where you cannot respond to this one. Al achas kamo v'kamo, all the more so. Lahaziris harabim. What are you doing? You've sat in your ivory tower in Paris, and you have now issued a worldwide ban, an absolute ban, an excommunication, a cherem, on anybody who learns Moreh Nevuchim and Sefer Hamada. So you've done, to Kal V'chomer, he says, Lahazer Sarabim, Uliyaser Kehilos Gedolos. You didn't give it, there was no scope, there was no limitation. Kehilos Gedolos. Let's talk about northern Spain. And obviously he's talking about himself, his constituency. Listen to how he describes it. And here we discover a fascinating statistic. Remember, this is 1230. Yeah, 1232. Asher Bahem Kamo Chasidim, Kamo Chachomim, Shahakol Chayovim Bichvoidom. In the Chachmei Narbona, the Chachmei Aragon, Castilia, right? They have Chachomim and Chasidim. So that's quality. And also, Harbe Mishteim Esrei Ribei Odam, many more than 120,000 people. So you have both quality and quantity. And you have just lorded it over them. Kol shekain v'kol shekain, shehayatzorich lovu b'motu uliyaser b'nachas. Even if you have genuine concerns about the content of this sefer, which you have, the truth is he's already said you're wrong. But let's assume that you were right. You now want to appeal to a constituency who are in love with the Rambam and his writings. What's the smart way to do it? You should have done it b'motu, with request. Yeah, that's that word. B'motu minchayin is the Aramaic word for a request. You should liyaser. You want to write. You want to chastise. Do it b'nachas. Halavai sheyehei b'doi roi lekabel teichachos. If only the general population were able to be mekabel teichacha. Ki ha'azos poirachas. Because arrogance is already widespread. Shevava ha'am hazeh meshuva mitzachas. And if you are going to decree something which will not be accepted lovingly and willingly, then what's going to happen? They're not going to care two hoots about your excommunication. And they will say, all they will do is they will push back, and you will have lost any prestige, any credibility which you, dear Baalei Tosfos, who Klal Yisrael needs. You've lost all of that. It'll become now a trap. And as we know, numerous examples in history. I'll give you 1, 2. Takonas Ezra, Tfilas Ezra is something really we should do, right? Kerry for Tefillah, for Torah, but so today only B'nai Torah generally are makbid on it. But Tfilas Ezra for Kerry, or after Tashmish. That's really, we should keep it, the Gemara says. And it was a time when it was a Gzeira, Takonas Ezra. But it's a Gzeira she'eina roiv hatzibu yecholim lamid ba. It was deemed to be too much, so it was left off. And today, it's generally only about B'nai Torah that stick to that. And Hasidim maybe. But, not that there aren't Hasidim that are B'nai Torah and B'nai Torah that aren't Hasidim, but these two sort of groups of people in Klal Yisrael today. But Chazal took something which really, they felt really there's something we should do. But they relaxed it because they realized that the the Roiv Hatzibur, the majority are not going to accept it. So even though it was something they felt it was right. The other example is Shemen Akum, right? There was a time, as you know, through the Gemara Ksubas, Shemen Akum was a Gzeira like other things, and it was just a Gzeira, it was a bridge too far for the Tzibur, and Chazal realized that, and they undid their own Gzeira. You have to be sensitive, you have to know what you can, there's no point saying something if it's not going to be accepted. So, and that's a balance generally in leadership, in terms of halacha, etc., public pronouncements, private pronouncements, how you say it, when you say it, and this needs a lot of chokhmah, a lot of siyata d'shmei, etc. But all you will have done is, he says, you've now really created a horrible situation. A, they're not going to listen to you. A, you're wrong. B, they're not going to listen to you. All that's happened is that any covered for yourselves and the Torah you represent has utterly been lost. Klal Yisrael will be split. It's going to create horrible things, and it did, we know. The Inquisition then burnt Sifrei Rambam, and not 10 years later what happened? 1242? 24 cartloads of Gemara was burnt in Paris and publicly, which is pre-printing, 24 cartloads, every letter painstakingly handwritten. Dog Zera Doiraisa, that's why Tanis of Tzadikim, Erev Shabbos Kodesh Pashas Chukas, as you know, etc., etc. Zois Chukas HaTorah, Dog Zera Doiraisa, and the Marami Rottenberg wrote a kinnah on that, which we say on Tisha B'Av, and he linked it, and it was understood that this was connected to what had happened here in some way. And therefore he turns to them at the end with a soulful plea. V'loma Rabboisai Go'oinai Tevalu es Nachlas Hashem. Why have you swallowed up Nachlas Hashem? You can hear the anguish in the Ramban. Let's go weiter. V'hinei anachnu kibalnu gzeiraschem. We accept your gzeira. V'nizhar micherev pichem. And we are concerned about the sword of your mouths. This is Cherev Pifios Biyodam. This is the Talmidei Chachamim, yes? Rebbe Moisei will be growing on the Cherev Pifios Biyodam. Every word here, every phrase is replete. It's a posuk in Tehillim. It's a posuk in Yeshua. It's a posuk. You got to, yeah? Ad tachkru and milin v'tishmeru amorim nichoichim ki ein svivo seinu pachim ein ba'artzoi seinu noided knafu metzaf tzeitz. Keneged Kabbalah Seinu. Ein Peretz vein Yotzeis vein Tzvocha Berchayvo Seinu. Va'omnam ki mi bein hahorim Merkova Yotzas Hashabo Hasusim Shechayrim. V'cherev hamachlikas b'soicham chazisi ma'ale osham kenegdi roisi. It's so hard to translate that. It's unbelievable. He's saying, the truth is, on the one hand, he's saying, we would accept your Gezerah, even though it's come out from between the Horim, Bein HeHorim, which is the reference to Chazal the Gemara, I don't want to be Machnis Roishai, Bein Shnei HeHorim HaGedolim, but we see the Merkava is coming out, although there are black horses coming with it. I mean, it's but at the end of the day, bad news. Now, Vehine, now he addresses some of the personalities. Reb Shlomo Minahar, okay, who kind of started this, and his Talmid, Rabbeinu Yoda. Harav Rabbi Shlomo Shom, or Shem, I'm not sure, Yoshor Noichach Imai. Ki riv l'chakem im chaveirov, ve'im chachme eretz yisvakach. He is arguing, his protagonists, the one who he's arguing with, are those, his contemporaries in Provence. Okay? He's in France. Im chachme eretz yisvakach. Va'anachnu lo yodanu dovar miyokum mimenu mehem. This is not our fight, the Ramban is saying. Omnam shamanus harav hagodol machzik b'medrashi rabbiseinu v'hagodoson. We don't know who this is, kind of thing, he's saying. It is true. Verily, we have heard that this great Rav, is machazik b'medrashei rabbiseinu zal u'b'hagodoson. He is an author. He's a from Yid, as we would say. Like I get phone calls the whole time about various personalities or hechsherim here or whatever, from people around the world. And somebody asked me the other day, for example, about Rav Appel and his hechsher in Frankfurt. And I say, as I always do, he's a Ayurei Shomayim, he's a medaktik b'halacha, and if he says something is kosher, yes, you can rely on him. Absolutely. So he's saying, Shomanu, we've heard that this Rav Shlomo Nahar is a from Yid, is a Shekol Advarim Yu Kavayosam Bisuda and Basuda. Then he's saying as follows. He's saying more than that. He is saying Reb Shlomo min Ahar. Here we get to anthropomorphism. This becomes quite relevant to our sugya, right? Which is why we're here. The Rambam, as we saw, wrote in this, the third Ikar that we are learning. What did he write? Dibur Torah Koloshen B'nei Adam, and it's a moshel, and all of these things. He says, I've understood that Reb Shlomo min Ahar takes a different view, says the Ramban. And he takes them, Machzik b'midrashei Rabbi Seinu Zal Bagodoson, Shekol Advorim Yiyu B'Havo Yoson. He sees them as being literal. Suda so asida. B'yayin hamashumor leviyoson, b'gehinem v'ginas beison, hamachake yireh. So, he takes it at face value. You see what he's saying, right? He's saying it realistically. Says the Ramban, the one who has patience will see. And the one who denies, lo yizke leroison, won't be zeicha to see it. V'yogel k'mayim mishpat utzdoko k'nachal eson. So, Reb Shlomo min Ahar has a different view. He sees Chazal, all these midrash and everything, absolutely kipshuton as literally. Va'atem Rabbi Seinu akdoshim, kovlim aleichem perushim, im basem ligdor geder ulahorim midarkom michshol upuka. You, Rabbi, say, now references back to the Chacham Tzarfas, and he says, you see that there's a problem here, and you want to prevent a problem. So, maybe you saw that it was an exigency of the time, that it was needed. Maybe to act swiftly, and here he's criticizing something else. Always patience. Have a masunim badin. You needed to act quickly. Kashehera eschem bahar, hu migdal Montpellier, hamar v'hanimhar. Lama kilaltem oisonu imohem. So why did you, the Chachmei Tzarfas, feel the need? You have, in other words, there is a local machlokes in France between the Chachmei Provence and the Chachmei Tzarfas and Reb Shlomo min Ahar and the Balei Tosfos. Lama kilaltem oisonu imohem. Why have you drawn us into this fight? Lahachnis artseinu, to come into our land, into Spain, b'gzeiras hacherem v'ha'olois, u'malonu v'lohem. What's it going to do with us? Ugvul nosan Hashem beineinu beineihem. There's a gvul, there's a border. V'acharei she'ein bim kaimenu machlokes. We don't have any machlokes. We're very happy. Thank you very much. L'shoid v'shever b'gvuleinu ein achrayes cherum chem aleinu. The authority and the responsibility for your cherem, it's not upon us. We don't accept this. Quite strong, hey? You should know our kehillah is very zealous when it comes to the kovod of the Rambam. Kovod kvod teirosoi v'chasidusoi v'esikarti feres gedulosoi lo mi yoseinu poischem al shtei seifim. Not because we are hypocrites, not because we are somehow, dare I say it, no I won't, it'll be cheeky, not because we want the best of both worlds, that we want Torah umada, or we've accepted the legitimacy of Aristotelian philosophy and authentic Torah. No. That you recognize that quote, to be pesach al shnei seifim, to be hypocrites. No, that's not, no. Losur mine oirach Rabbi Seinu hayofim, lefanis el havli ha-philosophim. No, don't think that's what we're coming to turn to the philosophers. V'im yala alev miktsosam migzeraschem, v'al ken sefer hamoira yarchiku, u'mebader b'inyonenu sifsoisov, u'mevader, b'inyonenu sifsoisov yadbiku, ki libam k'machat sedakis, le'yedu drochav v'nesivosov lo'yhemiku. Even if you want to say that you have a problem, somehow you misunderstood the Sefer HaMoireh, but ma yomru leSefer HaMada. But what about but you included in your ban not just Moireh Levuchim, but also the first of the Rambam's 14 Svarim, which is Sefer HaMada. Think about what's in Sefer HaMada, Rabbi Say. When we think of Sefer HaMada, we think of maybe Yesodei HaTorah. But what about Hilchos Tshuva? What about Hilchos Talmud Torah? What about Hilchos Avodah Zarah? These are all... Oh, he's going to say it. Yes, I forgot. Sorry. Mi Pesach u'mafteach lesifrei harav zal b'talmud u'movel l'chol chiburov. Sofer mitzvos Hashem asay v'lo yisasay. Melamed l'talmidim kovod u'moira behilchas Talmud Torah. Yeru chatoim derech behilchas tshuva. Benachas v'shuva b'li kushis v'avoyos. Mapik margolios. Ki lo yimotzinu divrei tshuva b'talmud rak mefurodim u'mfuzorim. If you want to know hilchas tshuva, what else do you have in 1230 other than the Rambam? If you're going to get rid of chas v'sholem, Sefer Hamada, then you want to know Hilchas Tshuva, you want to know Hilchas Talmud Torah, there is no other Sefer exists. Bein halachas v'agodas b'li berurim, u'b'chol chiburei ga'onim arishonim achronim. He calls the achronim. Lo motzanu eisam inyonim, derushim l'chol cheftsehem u'mzumonim. Kashahema mefuroshim u'buvwarim b'sefer ahu, hamoli b'fninim, hamiyuchas b'sfarim mi'bechutzim u'b'bifnim, u'michazdechem rabboiseinu edionu, malochem u'lesefer ahu, ki toirahi v'lilmoid anu tzrachim. Even if everything that I've said until now, I was wrong and you are right, but what on earth, what right, and on what basis do you have to ban, to write a worldwide cherem and a ban on Sefer Hamada? Wow. Just wow. Now he goes through some of the things, and we're going to miss out the next whole paragraph we're going to miss out, because it's not relevant for us. Okay? We are going to go to the bits that are relevant for us. Go to the bottom of page 6. One minute. I'll just make sure that I've got this right. Yes. Ukvara'u kol b'nei lunil. Now he brings a new point, and that is, he says, well, he's now focusing on Sefer Hamada. He says, well, let's have a look. All of the Chachmei Lunil, ukvara'u kol b'nei lunil, v'horav hagodol Rabbi Avram b'Rab David Zal. Now, because the Raavad died, I think, in 1190 or 90 something, if I'm not mistaken. I should have checked it out, I didn't. So the Raavad saw, and obviously the Raavad is from that school, Chachmei Lunil, right? The French Bali Tosfos, and he saw the Sefer Hamada, the Chachmei Lunil, and the Raavad. They didn't say to be going as it. They never said a word. V'lei korach of Tagar. Ve'ein echad mehem aloimdov charboi choiger. Avol kulu ivulanu. They all. You see, they learnt it, they wanted it, they looked at it, and they opened it and they didn't close it. And the proof is the Raavad, it's true, the Raavad disagreed with a number of the psokim of the Rambam. That's fine. Hello, that's Torah. He has a different opinion. But he didn't say excommunicated, ban it. You see clearly the Raavad learned the Rambam. And on some halachas he chose to disagree. But Rav Rabbi Avram ben David Zal, Heishiv al Miksas Devarov, V'lo yomar sheyesh bo k'tzas minus tzad kfira chas v'sholem. Nowhere does the Rambam write, does the Raavad write that there was any kfirus or minus. V'ro'isu l'Rabbeinu hatzarfati zal b'tshuvoisov, b'mitzvus haneges ato be'eretz Yisrael, shehigiu sifrei harav hagodoi liyodoi, v'hoya mizborech b'hem, u'mevi rayas midivrei hasforim hahem, b'sofo berura b'lashon mehuderes, u'mazkir harav sham l'shem u'l'siferes. Now hold on a second. Who is this? This is also the Rambam, the Raavad, I think. Who's Rabbeinu Hatzarfati Zal? B'tshuvoisov. That might be this. I should have looked and seen who that was. That was silly. You'll find out who this is. So he's brought the Raavad and somebody else, Rabbeinu Hatzarfati Zal. Might he mean the Smag? I don't think so. I need to find out who that is. Let's go a little bit further. 7, page 7 now. V'acherim shomati omrim, and others I heard say, Sh'atem toifsim al sefer hamada ba'omre she'ein lemalo tzura v'tavnis. Now here we get to corporeality, anthropomorphism, which is what we learned, which is kind of what brought it on. So because this was one of the problems. And I heard others say that the problem is that as if the Rambam wrote that in Shamayim there is no tzura v'tavnis. V'loma rabbeinu tafastem alav b'davar hazeh. Why, my dear friends, did you chap onto the Rambam and pick him up on this point? Shahari kol haga'onim b'chibureihem v'chol chachomim hakadmonim b'piyuteihem b'sfarad u'b'bovel. All the Ga'onim, all the chachomim in Spain, in Bovel, in their piyutim, yechoshvu, they are in one mind together with the Rambam. Yechoshvu hanoitim mizeh ka'olech achrei ha'hever. Anybody who disagrees with this, they write themselves that anybody who disagrees with this idea is wrong. V'karu hasei v'chiluf nargan mafrid aluf. V'davar zeh kosev b'Torah v'shoni b'anviim u'mshulish b'ksuvim. Says the Ramban, I and the Ga'onim and the Chachomim of Sfarad and Bovel totally and utterly agree with the Rambam, not with the Rishonim min Ahar. And it's in the Torah Shonu u'mefurish b'Haggados and b'Medrashim ha'neimim v'hanen ovim ki ilas kol ha'ilos yizbarach al kol brachos u'tehilos HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in simple English, ein l'ta'eroi b'geshem v'tavdis v'lo yasiguhu gevulos. He cannot be described in physical terms, ways, shape or form, nor can he have any boundaries or limitations. Ve'echa mokoim ugvul yitarehu v'hine hashamayim u'shmei hashamayim lo yichalkeluhu. Again, a reference to the Pasuk. V'omnom, it is true, kitzas ha'hagodes ha'toiros yiboku yoirim betzuros. They do break through yiboku yoirim. They break through the canals by ascribing a tzura, v'lohen sansanim upeiros, oisim peiros upeirei peiros, v'soidom ka'asher yivchan yin'am leyodim chen. Here is a reference to Kabbalah. He says it is true, and here he's almost certainly referencing Malochim, Tzuros, Spherois, etc. And as is his way, the Ramban always says it is true that there is an aspect of Torah, because the Ramban, of course, was conversant, obviously, as you know, in Kabbalah. And he says it is true that there is a method or a branch of Torah which does seems to invoke corporeality, spherois, etc. He says, but the secrets of those will be pleasurable to those who know its secret. Yin am chen. And that's all he does. He alludes to it. And this, of course, maybe at some later point we should show you the truth of the Rivosh on this and others. But that's all he gives a reference to this. But then he goes on to say something which the historians pick up on, really, really interesting. Okay. Soif davar hakol nishma, ki al zoiso emuna umoseinu umona. This which you have picked a fight with the Rambam on is absolutely basic standard emunah. Gam lechachmei tzarfas asher imrosom tzerufa da'atom yofa matzanu shekosvu kein b'chibureihem. Even if you're going to say that, so I've shown you Chachmei Lunil and the Raavad and the Tzarfati and this is Chazal and the Ga'onim Sfarad and Bovel, blah blah blah. But you might think, well, maybe in your part of the world there is a different school of thought. Not true, he says, because the Chachamim from your part of the world also absolutely say exactly the same thing. Gam lechachmei tzarfas, asher imrosem tzerufa, da'atom yofa, matzonu shekosvu kein b'chibureim. They also wrote the same thing. And here this is fascinating. V'chein ro'isi b'chibur harav ha'chosid Rebbe Eliezer miGramaiza Zatzal, the Balorikech. B'sefer Godel shechiber v'higia liyodoi mimenu sha'ar hasoid v'hayichud v'ha'emuna. And the Rekeach, the Sefer Rekeach has come to us. Now, in different versions of this letter, he refers to him a little bit differently, and according to some, and I know nothing about this, he was possibly, some of them suggest possibly he was his Rebbe in Kabbalah. I don't know whether it was the Rebbe of Yoko, but neither, just mentioning it. So this is what he's now quoting the Rekeach. Umahu Hashem Echad. What does it mean, Hashem Echad? Echad koil asher boi ein ktsei lechochmosoi ein cheker litvunosoi uli yicholtoi ein kotze uli yisoidoi ein loy haschala v'loy soif Very poetic. Yitzer hakol yodea hakol emes. Ein loy ponim v'loy ochar v'goiva. Ein keitz v'tachlis l'chol asher yesh boi. Ein loy gvul v'loy eivarim l'boirei olamim. U'masha kosav b'kroyim inyonim geshmiyim v'loy nichtuv kiyim lahavin livnei adam. U'kvar hizirunu b'seirosenu shaloy nachshev alav dmus v'tzura dichsev v'nishmatem ha'ila nafshei sechem ki loy re'isem kol temuna. V'kosav temuna b'gematria parts of Adam, u'masha kosav nasa Adam v'tzalmenu kidmusenu, loi sheyesh boi l'boirei dmus v'tzelem b'riyesov, ela b'tzalmenu shanu chafetzim l'Yisroel l'neviim. Parts of hachomud hu pnei Adam, dimyon hanira lanu mekubed v'yokar, zehu b'tzalmenu ki mekubed b'einenu, b'tzelem shemalachei asharis nirim boi, zehu b'dmusai, al derech hayokar v'hakovoid, shechofetz ba'adam ken pishur Rabbeinu Sadia gon zal, v'chol ha-sever al ha-boirei yetzer hakol sheyesh le'tzelem dmus v'eivarim, eloi eloi haklal. So he is quoting, this is all one long quote from the Rokeach, very clearly agreeing with the Rambam, that anybody who thinks that Hashem really, genuinely has a corporeal understanding to him, a shape, a form, a dmus has no God. And he goes on at length. We'll just run through the rest of the paragraph, quoting Reb Sadia Gaon. Anybody who thinks that he hasn't selem, he has no God at all. Tira hamatargim pi Hashem meimrod Hashem be'enei Hashem kodam Hashem ze l'shoyne ve'elu dvorov v'yidom Razal be'emes u'b'shua ein li'yetze kol l'dmus li'tzura u'bezeh hoyu aviseinu ha'kdoshim ma'aminim v'chol ma shekosu b'shir hashirim roishoi kesem poz kvutzoi sof taltalim einoi ela moshel. Tira b'medrash chazis, and this is all a quote from the Rokeach. V'chol Rabbonim, Rabbeinu Chananel, Rabbeinu Nissim, Rabbeinu Nosson, Yodu v'kosu she'ein dmus v'geshem l'boirei yisparach shmei, v'kilalu ha'ma'aminim bozeh, v'Avram Avinu, olav ha'shalom heven v'yoda zeh, al kein ani oime be'emes, she'ama'amin be'lahusa yovin, she'kmei she'ein evarim l'neshama, like there is no evarim to the neshama which comes from the kisei ha'kovod, kach ein l'boirei baruchut, guf tzurachem dmus klal, a'ama'amin ashrav u'mishaloi, and somebody who doesn't, says the Rokeach, yodun be'esh. He'll be judged in fire. Ki haboirei yisbarach hayoz bakol v'korav laguf yisem and anashama laguf ve'ein dimyon lai baruch hu. So that is a quote. All that whole long, you got the gist of it, right? He's utterly, totally, very strongly agreeing with the Rambam, and he writes more. Which sorry, that's for the Rokeach. Yeah. That's right. And then, so look, halfway down page 8, he's more quotes, we don't need to do it. Kol ze kosav Rav Chosid Zal, that's where the Ramban says, up until all of this is a long quote from the Rokeach, and then he writes, at the next paragraph, Yodati ki ha-sefer hu motzo yetzlechem. I know, he says, I know that the Sefer Rokeach, you have access to it. So you can't even turn around and say, oh, we didn't know, or he's closing them down. You see what he's doing? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, listen to this. Then he goes back. He switches between. He sandwiches. He starts off with very, very, very soft humility. Then he goes on the attack, and now look what he does. Now he says, and I know really you have this sefer, and really there's much more for me to say, but I want to be short. Let's just do the first few lines of that second paragraph on page 8. Because may God is my witness. As I'm writing these things, I'm going to keep it short, because my knees are knocking together in fear. A straight quote from the Pasuk in Daniel. Yeah, that my knees are shaking and trembling. My heart and my thoughts are moving around. In other words, he's the next line. I beg of you, from you, to forgive me, to atone for me. I have no choice, my friends. Can you see what he's doing now? He's flipping again. And we can't understand on you. B'nei ha'elokim. You are the B'nei Elokim. Ki ra'inu shelo hiskamta be'arav. We don't understand. And you v'tzivisem lignoi sufarov. And you gave the command to bury his Sfarim. And when we heard these things, we didn't know what to say. Yominu smile. And it... Masaponim yesh b'dava, it's... He's begging them. Eine kol Yisrael aleichem, lo kachas kal v'choyme. We want to tell over to the tzibur what you should say. We need your Torah. It's unbelievable. I mean, we don't have... Lochein, back over to page 9, and we're nearly done, Rabbi Isai.
It's not done anymore, huh?
What?
This is not so much style that's so prevalent anymore.
Well, you know what? Hold that thought, because the next few shiurim I'm going to go right up to the 20th century, and we are going to look at some responses on the very same subject. We're going to see. So that's why I want to do them.
Does this relate to Machlokes Tzimtzum Kipshuto?
No. We're going to keep it to. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it to the same thing, corporeality. Right. We're going to go to Nassan Slifkin and Rav Moshe Shapiro and Mark Shapiro and Reb Zev Leff and names that you are familiar with on the very same topic. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to contrast. We're going to look at the critique on these very important ideas. Lochein, page 9, Rabbi Seinu, chushu leminyanchem. V'havu mesunim bedinchem. Be patient and have forbearance in your din. Hacharem yoser v'ha'oles hayotze tufo betruas shofer. Hashamto b'minyan echod tibotel. The klola, this is very important, Hashamto. The cherem with 1 million, tibotel. The Rambam is telling to them, tevatel. Cancel your cherem. He's telling them, cancel your cherem. V'hanidui l'chol ruach yizore. And the nidui should be thrown into the wind. Hu asar v'tut share. Tut asar v'tut share. V'yetzed v'amalchus milifnechem. V'tihiu la'aguda v'kesha shel kayoma. La'abeid zeroye roma. La'achrem l'nadois u'l'shamois. Koloshin medaberes gedolos. Asher Elohim yitzmas hamalig al agodos u'marchiv per al ho'asmachtos. Now, then he gives it some detail. Va'al oich say sefer moira hanavuchim kitois. And here, by the way, I'm just going to again make a comment, just for the purposes of in case anybody's watched. I know some people actually do watch this, believe it or not. I get some comments. There is a lot of talk over the next few lines here amongst the academics and the historians, because there are 3 different versions of the next few lines, and depending on how you translate it, it could mean slightly different things. I'm going to take just a simple line and not go into it. I'm just acknowledging that I'm aware of this. So on the practical side, those who learn Meir Nevuchim in groups, Tosimu yad meirachem al pichem. That he's basically saying that's okay. Ki mitzvahs harav hamagodol excuse me, I mentioned this before you came. Ellie, excuse me. That actually, I pointed out the irony which he alluded to earlier. The Rambam himself writes that Meir Nevuchim is not written to be learnt in groups. It's not for the general population. He didn't write it for the general population. He wrote it for the Nevuchim. He writes himself. He wrote it to his Talmud, Rabbi Yosef HaKanin, that those who are not familiar or not bothered or not troubled, the Rambam himself writes, do not learn my Sefer Barabim. By you banning it, those of us in Spain who would have listened to the Rambam not to learn it in public, now what they're going to do is they're actually going to, what do you do if you tell a Jew not to listen? They're going to do it. So actually you would have actually done something even against the Rambam himself. That was the irony we mentioned earlier. But here he says the Ramban is conceding. He's almost possibly allowing them to save some face. He's saying, at least on that bit which you wrote about not learning Meir Nevuchim in public, I'm with you. Ki mitzvahs harav hagodol ha'mechabroi hilei moir, and he's quoting the Rambam. Lo tefarsemuhu v'lo tefarshehu v'kach oma b'tchilas sifro. He now quotes the Rambam, and he mashbia be'eli zborach l'chol hakoirei b'zeh hasefer leval yevair mimenu afilu ois achas v'lo yevair lezulosoi ela mashu mavura mafurish b'divrei mi shehekdimani mechachmei teiraseinu asher nikvu b'shemois ach lelamid mashalei omar echad zulosi goinenu zal al yimadu lezulosoi zehu teifus divrei harav zal. The Rambam himself wrote, if when you read my Sefer Meir Nevuchim, and you want to interpret it and explain it, not on the basis of something which is already accepted as Torah, you're wrong. Don't do that. And he also wrote, don't learn it in public. Zehu Teifes Devrei Rav Zal. Va'af atem rabbeinu haskimu im chachmei Provansia. V'gam anachnu neitzei b'kvoseim. We agree with you as well, not to learn it in public. Techazku adover hazeh b'cheirem v'ola b'ram u'b'rash u'b'koila mula gedoila. And now all of a sudden he gets all energetic. Listen at the expressions of cherem. You have a penchant for cherem? Here's your opportunity, kind of thing. Don't know if I can say this, a bit naughty. But look at the way he does it. We'll go out with you as well. Techazku adover hazeh b'cheirem v'ola b'ram b'rash v'koila mula gedoila v'lahav eishaychla b'melchomes tenufa avdisu hardofa hein lemoves hein leshoshi. Hein lanish nichsinu liisurin. Haloi zeh dai takona v'goder. That I agree with you. Come out with a big, fancy, all singing, all dancing, cherem and a nidoy and a da-da-da-da-da-da, not to learn Moreh Nevuchim in groups in public. Fine. Yeah? Dai takona v'goder. Ubemari hasholem tenalu hatzoin, ubenoisa avot harbitzu ha'eder. Do everything nicely, softly. And tell everybody, yes, you spend time on Torah Shebechsav, Torah Shebal Peh, whoever listens, somebody who doesn't listen. You can't turn everybody in, all of Klal Yisrael into Hasidim. It's not your job. It's not. You don't have it within your gift. And he brings the Tshuvas of Rav Haigon. Okay, basically, I think we'll more or less stop here. But he says, but the Sefer Hamada, that comes a bit later. Go over the page 10. V'im tiru. And then he talks about the Rabbi Avram ben Rambam. They should be in touch with him as well, because he then wrote the Sefer Milchamas Hashem, which we're not going to really go into on that. And you've got Rabbi Shlomo Barceloni, Shlomchem Kanar Hitu, with Savanechem Bavok Liris Meiroi. And then, but in other words, no ban on Sefer Hamada. That's unacceptable at all. You want to ban Sefer the Meirah not to be learnt in public? Okay, Beseda. There's a lot more we've glossed over, but we've done probably as much as I can demand of you and of myself. And with that, we've learnt this to some extent, this letter of the Ramban. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we will start looking at modern